Hello and welcome to another Commander video on the Magic Boy Productions channel. I'm Ben, aka Magic Boy on Magic Online, and today we'll be walking through a $35 upgrade to the Worldshaper Precon from Edge of Eternities before taking it for a spin in 2 games. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel so far. We've already cleared 60 subs and will be at 100 in no time. This channel is still under a month old, so it's awesome to see this continued growth. Every interaction goes a long way, so it means a lot when you like, share, subscribe, or comment. With that in mind, I'd like to start asking a question of the day that people can answer in the comments. For today, what's your favorite pre-constructed deck? Personally, I love the Orzhov Strixhaven Precon, Silver Quill Statement, because I'm a sucker for political games, and I think it added a lot of really fun cards to the format. But there are a ton of great Precon decks out there, and I think they've become a really important part of Commander. Today we're talking about the Worldshaper Precon though, a Jund Lands deck helmed by Hearthhall the World Seed. This 4-mana spacecraft lets us pay 1 to sacrifice a land, draw 2 cards, and drop an extra land when it's stationed to 2, and becomes a 6/7 flying vigilance haste when stationed to 8. At 8 counters, it also makes it so that our opponents lose 2 life every time we sacrifice a land. This video actually does double duty for me because I built a Bracket 3 Hearthhall deck, link in the description, that was incredibly powerful but kept breaking Magic Online, which isn't very fun for our opponents or very good content. I also get a lot of comments about the price tag of my deck since I don't build with that in mind, so I wanted to provide some budget-friendly content for a change. Even before upgrades, this is an engine deck centered on playing and sacrificing lands over and over again for value. In that interest, effects that let us get extra land drops really get that engine going. The Precon already had 2 copies of this effect, an Exploration Broodship, which can eventually let us recur other permanents from our graveyard, and Oracle of Moldiah, which can chain multiple lands off the top of our library, effectively serving as card advantage and ramp. We added Jarad of the Elysian Grove, since in addition to granting us an extra land drop, it also turns all of our lands into basics. That fixes our mana, but it lets us tap fetch lands like Evolving Wilds for mana while holding on to them until we have something that will get us value when we sacrifice. We also added Budoka Gardener and Mina and Den as budget-friendly ways to get extra lands into play. With all our fetch lands and effects that sacrifice lands, cards that let us get lands into play from the graveyard can represent massive value. We added Perennial Behemoth and Ramunap Excavator to complement the recursion provided already by Cesarl Genesis Shepherd, Soul of Windgrace, Aftermath Analyst, and Splendid Reclamation. The deck already features several powerful landfall cards to capitalize on our plan, but we added some more oomph in Avenger of Zendikar and a suite of landfallers that help burn down the table, in Iridescent Vinelasher, Sabotender, Spitfire Lagak, Panic Memorial Ensign, and Valakut Exploration. This damage definitely adds up over the course of a game, and having a couple of these in play can start to delete life totals quickly. Springheart Nantuko can come down early to spit out chump blockers, or be bestowed on another landfall creature to make tons of copies of it when we play multiple lands in a turn. The Precon also has a bunch of creatures with reverse landfall, which I guess we need a name for. Landfill, maybe? These trigger when lands hit the graveyard to build out our board. In addition, Turn Timber Sower can help provide chump blockers as we sacrifice lands. The plants can even be pumped by Avenger of Zendikar later on. There were already plenty of cards that sacrifice lands and other permanents for value, including the Commander, so we only added Nahiri's Lithoforming, which can draw a ton of cards and get a ton of landfall triggers when combined with one of our effects that let us play lands from our graveyard. Our mana base is budget, but there's still some utility to be found. The budget fetches overperform in this list, so we added another one in Twisted Landscape, cutting the basic waste that was a little too cute in the original list since the only colorless requirement was Worldbreaker's activated ability. Horizon Explorer is a cool new card from the Precon that helps us ramp, but it also provides an effect that's fairly unique in Magic, allowing all our lands to enter untap. We added Spelunking as well, since that untap effect can power up our budget mana base and make Splendid Reclamation turns explosive. This deck does like to ramp, and since we've added some extra land drops, we cut down on conventional ramp spells like Cultivate and Skyshroud Claim, and held on to our potent mana rocks and ramp spells that sacrifice lands. We actually want to be drawing lands to play throughout the game, so we don't want to overload on Tutor-style ramp. We added Paradise Druid as well, a solid little role player that fixes our mana, and can also station up Hearthhall. Tireless Provisioner is another landfall creature we added that we categorize as ramp, and it can lead to explosive turns if we stockpile treasures or make a ton of them with some mass land recursion. The deck's interaction suite is pretty solid and feels about right for Bracket 2. We left it mostly untouched, cutting Putrefy because we really want our 3-mana removal to be completely versatile nowadays, and removing Planetary Annihilation because the mass land destruction feels out of place in Bracket 2. Having this card in a Precon feels like a statement from Wizards about what counts as MLD, but it feels pretty salty to me, so we swapped it out for Lavalanche, which can be a more targeted option to sweep whoever's board is the most problematic. We made 19 total changes, and the cards we removed generally were low impact overall, like Groundskeeper, Jury, Night's Whisper, and Satyr Wayfinder, or don't provide enough for their mana value, like Centaur Binecrasher, God Eternal Bontu, Multani, Yavamaya's Avatar, Urg Spawn of Turg, and Worldbreaker. Formless Genesis and Loam Crafter Fawn feel clunky given that we aren't likely to hold on to many lands, and we cut Braids Arisen Nightmare because that card tends to put a target on its controller, and we have plenty of land sacrifice effects that aren't going to draw us that kind of heat. We tried to keep all the Precon's new cards in, but Eumidian Wastewaker just doesn't pull its weight, sharing a mana value with our commander and needing to attack to get its trigger. The Encore is a nice failsafe, but this deck doesn't lack for expensive plays to make in the late game. The card we had the hardest time cutting was Mazarek, Crawl Death Priest, since it can help win out of nowhere with a wide board, but ultimately it felt more situational and win more than other mid-game options, and isn't a great top deck when we're low on resources. The overall plan is to get lands into play and into our graveyard and generate tons of value off of whatever landfall and landfill effects we find along the way. Hearthhall fueling both of those elements once we can get it online. Most of the time this deck aims to win through combat with an army of token creatures, but in more stalled out games it can burn the rest of the table down too. There's also some soft combo potential if Hearthhall is fully stationed, and we can set up a bunch of sacrifices, some mass land recursion, and then sacrifice again. That's going to do it for the deck overview. Let's hop into the games. We win the die roll and get to go first. Our opening hand only has 2 lands, but it has a nice mix of the effects we want to see from our deck. Exploration Broodship can amplify the impact of our landfall cards like Sabbatender and Tireless Tracker. We have 2 3-power creatures that can station it. Arcane Signet will ramp us and help us stay in the game if we don't find more lands in the first few turns, and Turntimber Sower will synergize with Land Sacrifice down the line, building out a board of chump blockers to give us time to enact our plan. Our first opponent is Morska Undersea Sleuth. This Bant Merfolk provides a steady stream of cards by investigating each turn, and eliminates maximum hand size so they can keep everything they draw. Morska also grows whenever they draw their second card, opening up Voltron or 1/1 counter synergy options. This commander's pretty open-ended, and Bant is a flexible, powerful color combination and casual commander, so we're expecting this deck to be a force to be reckoned with. Our second opponent is the Scorpion God. This commander rewards its controller with cards for doling out -1/-1 counters, and can dodge the command tax by returning to hand when it dies. It can also activate to put -1/-1 counters on creatures. We can look forward to other cards that dish out counters to synergize with the god, and Rakdos is a premier color pair for removals, so our opponent will be great at controlling the board. Last but not least is Greymond, Athassin's Stalwart, the universe's within printing of Rick from The Walking Dead. This human kindred lord can pick the best 2 keywords for its team at any given moment, and with enough humans on boards provides a massive +2/+2 boost to all of them. Humans have plenty of great options in mono white, so we can expect a combat-focused deck packed with synergy. The game begins, and fortunately we draw a forest, so we use it to cast Exploration Broodship, getting set up to make extra land drops once we station it. Morska has a meticulous archive, and they surveil a card to the top of their library. Scorpion God plays and immediately cracks a Terramorphic Expanse, grabbing a mountain to the battlefield tapped. Greymond has a tapped Path of Ancestry, which should get them a ton of scry value over the course of the game. We play a Viridescent Bog and filter some mana to cast Arcane Signet, tapping out and passing. Morska has a Command Tower and a Sky Serpent Seeker, a great blocker that they can exhaust later on to double ramp. The Scorpion God plays a Swamp and casts Doom Dissenter, suggesting that they might have an Aristocrats theme going on. Greymond has a Plane, and to Mikaeus the Lunarch, X=1, and scries a card to the bottom with their Path of Ancestry. We start off with our Tireless Tracker so that when we play Maestro's Theater and sacrifice it for a Mountain and a Life, we'll get 2 clues from our landfall triggers. We don't have any more lands to go with our Broodship, so we leave the tracker on blocking duty instead of stationing. Morska plays out a Glacial Fortress, and Selvala, Explorer Returned, a group hug card that can provide them with some mana. Scorpion God just has a Swamp and passes. The human player didn't find a third land, but they have a Champion of the Parish, which can start growing and scries them a card to the top of their library with the Path of Ancestry. Hopefully they hit a land. We cast Turntimber Sower so that our Evolving Wilds can start making us chump blockers in addition to the clues we get from it, and the forest we grab with it. Morska plays a forest and then activates Selvala, revealing the Gitrog monster for us, a Plains for them and Greymond, and a Command Tower for the Scorpion God. We all draw from Parlay, and then the Merfolk gains a life and uses the single mana from Selvala to help cast a Kick Grow from the Ashes, grabbing them an untapped forest and island, which they tap before passing. The Scorpion God plays the Command Tower they got from Selvala, and then adds to the group hug count with the Font of Mythos. This game's about to get crazy. On their end step, Greymond activates Mikaeus to give the Lunarch another 1/1 counter. Greymond gets to draw 3 cards total thanks to Font of Mythos, which should help them recover from missing a land drop. They play a Cavern of Souls, naming Human, and cast Thalia, Heretic Cathar, a card that really slows down our game plan by making our creatures and non-basic center tapped. They scry a card to the bottom with Path, and grow their champion when the human enters before discarding a Plains to hand size. We get to draw 3 cards too, and cast a Ramanop Excavator, a little snake that lets us play our Evolving Wilds, and then our Maestro's Theater from our graveyard, racking up some more clues and a plant token from lands entering and sacrificing. After that we pass, leaving up some mana to bluff interaction, when really we just play to crack a clue. Morska draws their 3 and plays a Plains, activating Selvala again. We draw a Forest, while Morska shows an Urban Evolution, Scorpion God nabs a Swamp, and Greymon reveals a Faithbound Judge, so Selvala provides another 2 mana and 2 life for its controller. Morska follows up with Parallel Lives, so we can expect some tokens in the future, and then cast Cryptolith Rites, turning their future creatures into Mana Dork. After that, they cast Realm Sketching, netting 2 copies of Font of Mythos thanks to their token doubler. The group hug is about to start getting out of hand. The Rakdos God draws 7, playing a mountain and fires off a Bituminous Blast at Selvala. The removal spell cascades into another removal spell, and a Braid takes out one of the Font of Mythos tokens, reducing everyone to a sensible 5 cards each turn. After that they pass, and Greymon adds another counter to Mikaeus. The Scorpion God discards a Deathbringer Thoktar, Platinum Empyreon, and Merciless Javelineer, leaving us wondering if they have reanimation spells to get them back. Greymon draws 5 and has a Plains, then a second Thalia, the Guardian of Thraben, another stacks piece, but this one we don't mind seeing so much. They scry a card to the bottom and then grow their champion, and then they activate Mikaeus to put counters on their team. At their end step we crack a clue, because we don't have enough cards, and grow our tracker. Greymon discards Gallows at Willow Hill, Audric's Outrider, Faithbound Judge, and Harvest Hand. We draw 5 and then cast Sabotender and Tireless Provisioner. They enter tap thanks to the Heretical Thalia, but will let us start pinging the table and making treasures with our land drops. We replay Maestro's Theater from our graveyard and get a ton of triggers when it enters, and that finds us a mountain, dealing 2 damage to everyone and making 2 treasures, 2 clues, and a plant token. We repeat the process by playing Maestro's Theater a second time, and then crack our Evolving Wilds for another forest, getting another slew of triggers. The board isn't too scary, so we attack into the Morska player with our Excavator and Sower to apply some pressure. They have a ton of mana, plenty of cards, and a token doubler, so they're definitely our biggest threat. After combat, we move to discards, ditching a Eumidian Hatchery, Sulphurous Springs, Springbloom Druid, and Escape to the Wilds. Sower sees the lands hit the graveyard and makes us a plant, and we leave up our Arcane Signet and 3 treasures to cast Beast Within through the Thalia tax. Morska draws 5 more and has a Tap Tundra and then a Fey Offering, a cool enchantment that, thanks to Parallel Lives, is going to get them double clues, foods, and treasures at the end of each turn that they can cast both a creature and non-creature spell. Sure enough, they have a creature to fulfill that condition, a clever impersonator that does a mean Tireless Provisioner impression. On their end step, they get their tokens and don't have to discard anything with exactly 7 cards in hand. Scorpion God draws 5 and has a tapped Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and casts their commander, possibly setting up for some 1/1 counter shenanigans next turn. They discard a pair of Swamps, a Mountain, and Vraska Betrayal Sting. Greymon gets 5 more cards and has a Plains, and it seems like they're worried about what Morska's up to too. They swing Champion of the Parish and both Thalias at the Bant player, knocking them down to 24. Their attack gives them full cost reduction for Search Party Captain, which draws them the card they scried to the top with Path of Ancestry and grows their champion upon entry. They follow up with Stalwart Pathlighter, which will let the human horde gain Indestructible to attack with impunity on future turns, and Champion gets another counter. On their end step, we Beast Within Thalia Heretic Cathar so that we can go into our turn unimpeded. They activate Mikaeus, pumping their team, and then discard a small army in the form of Silverblade Paladin, Thalia's Lancers, and Audric Master Tactician. After drawing our 5, we play out the Gitrog monster, and then a forest, triggering our landfallers to ping everyone and make a clue and a treasure. We could have sequenced this a little better, but it's still early enough to play Iridescent Vinelasher, paying for Offspring to get a token copy when it enters. We play Evolving Wilds, and this round of triggers also has the Vinelasher chipping away at Morska, who we're going to try to take out this turn. We crack Evolving Wilds for another basic, drawing a card from Gitrog, making a plant, and then repeating our landfall triggers and token triggers when the new land enters. We play it and crack it again to repeat the whole process, and when all's said and done, we've left Morska at 11 life and Scorpion God and Greymon at 32 apiece. We're ready for combat, so we somehow station our spaceship with a giant frog monster, which is fun to picture, and then swing it, our Provisioner, our Tracker, our Excavator, and our Sabotender at Morska, taking them out. It feels a little bad knocking someone out this early, but with access to at least 12 cards, a token doubler, and treasures from the cleverly impersonated Tireless Provisioner, they could really get out of hand with another turn. Good game to them though, their deck seemed like a lot of fun and it reminds me I need to build something with Fey Offering. That's all for our turn, so we pass with some mana up and plenty of blockers. We discard 3 lands, and Sower gives us a plant, and Gitrog draws us a card from them hitting the bin. And then we discard Corvold too, since we don't need Gluttonous Dragons where we're going. The Scorpion God only gets to draw 3 now and plays Reflecting Pool, then casts Cathartic Pyre to take out our Turn Timber Sower. They follow up with Daggercaster, a weird little card that deals 1 to us and Greymon and all our creatures. This wipes out our plants, our Sabotender, and our poor baby Vinelasher before it even has its first birthday. This is a great political play from them, opening us up to what will probably be a huge attack from the human player. Speaking of, they draw 3 and have a Castle Ardenvale, then cast their commander. Greymon shares a creature type with itself, so they get to scry a card to the bottom with Path of Ancestry, and when it enters, they grow their champion and give their whole team lifelink and vigilance. They have plenty of humans, so Greymon's Double Anthem is online as well. They go to combat and the Pathlighter's Coven trigger makes their team indestructible, then they swing everything they can at us. We block the biggest creature, the 10/10 champion, with our Vine Lasher, but still take a massive lifelinking hit down to 21. They pass with 2 mana up, which is a little concerning considering how many cards they've been drawing, and then discard a Plains and a Cathar's Call. On our upkeep, the Gitrog triggers and we feed it a forest to draw a card before drawing our standard 3 cards for our turn. We're in position to win as long as no one has any interaction, so we start things off with Spelunking, drawing a card and putting a forest onto the battlefield to replace the one our Frog ate. Our landfall triggers were cut down to size by the Dagger Caster, but we still get a clue and a treasure, and now all our lands will enter untapped. We cast Morag, Fury of Acume, which is how we plan to win. We play a swamp and start stockpiling combat steps along with our landfall tokens, and then we tap out and sacrifice all our treasures to send a World Souls Rage with X equal to 6 at the Scorpion God player, since we don't want the mono white player to potentially be able to fizzle the spell with something that grants hexproof. The Rage deals 6 damage to the god and returns 6 lands from our graveyard to the battlefield. This will net us a total of 8 clues, treasures, and most importantly combat steps after Maestro's Theater and Riveteer's Overlook sacrifice themselves. Our plan is to use our treasures to get some more triggers and then swing over and over with our Broodship for more and more damage each time it attacks thanks to Morag, so while we're wrestling with our triggers, our opponents concede since the writing is on the spaceship wall and they don't have any answers, meaning that we win the game. GG's to our opponents.
So that was a pretty crazy game. Group hug effects usually make it so that everyone gets to do their thing, and aside from the Scorpion God, that was definitely the case. Props to that player for the savvy play they made, clearing out our chump blockers to signal it was time to team up against us and open up the way for a big attack from Greymond. Our ban opponent committed what I feel like is one of the cardinal sins of Commander, setting up a bunch of powerful synergy pieces, but leaving themselves wide open. It's usually better in those situations to slow down the development a little bit and get something on the board, and even just leaving up open mana from a ban deck can dissuade opponents from overcommitting to an attack. Greymond showed good threat assessment throughout the game, which is an important skill for Commander in general, but is especially important for combat-based decks that don't want the players who aren't ahead to get worried about their board and start dealing with it prematurely. Getting to drink from all those fonts of Mythos means we didn't really even need our Commander to provide card advantage, so Hearthal stayed in orbit all game, but we still got to see how our deck can create a powerful engine by mixing landfall effects with extra land drops, especially our budget fetches like Maestro's Theater and Evolving Wilds. Let's head to Game 2 and see if the World Seed makes an appearance. For this game, we max lose the die roll and end up going last. Our opening hand is fine. We have 3 lands, which is a good start, and if we can find more, we have Dryad of the Elysian Grove, one of the best cards in our deck, play extras. Tireless Tracker can build up card advantage, and our backup commander, Cesaril, can combo with the Dryad and fetch lands to put a ton of lands into play and boost our board. Having access to Blasphemous Act, one of the best sweepers in the format, can help us turn the game around by wiping the board for a single mana and being the first one to rebuild. We're hoping to find some cheap spells or more lands in our first 2 draw steps. We've got a solid, if slow, game plan either way. Our first opponent is the Jolly Balloon Man, a Boros commander that's high on my list to build. This 3-mana 1/4 human clown has haste, letting his controller activate its 1-mana ability to create a temporary 1/1 balloon copy of another one of their creatures. I'd be looking to capitalize on the sheer value of combining the plentiful enters the battlefield and token synergies available, but we'll have to see how this player's deck plays out. Next up we have Traxos, Scourge of Krug, a 4-mana 7/7 construct with Trampled that's taking a break from stationing spacecraft to helm a colorless deck. Traxos enters tapped, but untaps whenever its controller casts a historic spell. Most colorless decks tend to look pretty similar, with lots of artifact synergies and ramp backed up by powerful colorless threats and interaction. Traxos in the command zone suggest they might be going for commander damage kills. And oh, look at that! Greymond is back. This is the same player and deck we saw in Game 1, so we know we can expect a mono-white human kindred deck buffed to the gills by their commander, with some stacked pieces thrown in the mix for good measure. The Jolly Balloon Man starts us off with an Evolving Wilds, which they immediately cracked for a tapped Plains. Traxos starts their engines with a Muruganda Raceway, which becomes a soul land at max speed. Greymond has a Plains into a Grafdigger's Cage, which is a little surprising to see at bracket 2, but fortunately it doesn't say anything about lands coming back from the graveyard. We just play a tapped Cinderglade and pass, and the Jolly Balloon Man plays a mountain and passes. Traxos has a Zalfrin Void, scrying a card to the top before they cast Mask of Memories, which supports our Voltron theory. Greymond has another Plains and ramps with an Arcane Signet. We haven't found any 2-drops, so we just play a Forest and tap out and pass. JBM adds a Plains to their collection and casts Steel Seraph for its prototype cost. Traxos has a Demolition Field, which would be an issue for us if we weren't a budget lands deck, and casts a Cloud Key naming artifacts. Artifact cost reduction is an issue for all of us, and it seems like the colorless deck is likely to emerge as the early archenemy. Greymond has a Cavern of Souls naming humans and casts their commander uncounterably, choosing for humankind to gain vigilance and lifelink. We draw a 2-drop right on time, but opt to play our command tower, cast our Dryad of the Elysian Grove, and then use our extra land drop for Viridescent Bog. Balloon Man has a second mountain and a powerful enchantment in Flame Shadow Conjuring, which is basically a backup commander for them. They head to combat, and the Angel Bot gives itself vigilance so it can swing at Traxos for 3 and then defend its controller. Traxos plays in Urza's Factory, a nice little late-game mana sink, and then casts their commander. Thanks to the Cloud Key reduction, they can also mask it up. Greymon has a Plains and casts Thalia's Lieutenant, which boosts their commander with a counter. They attack into Traxos as well, dealing 4 lifelinking commander damage to the Scourge of Krug. Unfortunately, we draw a 7-drop and haven't found another land, so we take this opportunity to cast our commander, Hearthhall. We can't activate it this turn, so we opt to have our Dryad and its 4 toughness stay on defense rather than stationing. Jolly Bee has a 5th basic, a mountain, and casts Solemn Simulacrum. The robot should be a little less sad since they pay 1 to make it a friend, a copy with Flame Shadow Conjuring, netting them a tap Plains and Mountain with their ETB triggers. They head to combat and give the Solemn copy lifelink with their Seraph, and attack us in the air for 3 while getting 2 lifelink damage on Traxos. On their end step, Flame Shadow Conjuring exiles the copied robot, so no card draw there. Traxos plays a waste and treats themselves to a 2-mana Shimmermere, which means they can play at instant speed now and get to untap their commander. They go to attacks and send Traxos at the Greymon player, connecting for 7 commander damage and gaining a speed before super looting with Mask of Memory. They discard a snow-covered waste and then pass the turn. Greymon plays a Plains and knows no fear, swinging right into the Artifact Menace. Traxos flashes in a Semblance Anvil, untapping their commander and exiling a Lightning Grease to bring their cost reduction up to 3. Yikes. Giant Metal Dragon somehow ambushes Greymon, sending it back to the command zone. Post-combat, they recast their commander, choosing First Strike and Lifelink this time, and when it enters, Thalia's Lieutenant picks up a counter. We draw one of our budget fetches, which goes perfectly with what we've got going on. We cast our Tireless Tracker and use it to station Hearthhall, then activate our commander to sacrifice our forest, draw 2, and get access to a 3rd land drop. Unfortunately, we only have 2, so we play Evolving Wilds and Fable Passage, and then crack them for a swamp and a mountain, netting 4 total clues. If we can get Cesaril into play next turn, our engine will be running at warp 9. The Balloon Man has another mountain and casts Sushi, the Blazing Sky. They can copy it with Flame Shadow Conjuring, sacrificing the copy due to the legend rule for some immediate impulse draw, which gives them temporary access to Mentor of the Meek and Windscarred Crag. They cast the Mentor, setting up some future card advantage, and then give their Seraph Vigilance so it can attack freely for 3 damage into Greymon. On their end step, Traxos flashes in a Mystic Forge. What bracket is this again? 2, right? Traxos untaps, and we're definitely worried. They've been drawing most of the aggro so far, but they're way ahead of everyone else. They kick things off with combat, swinging Traxos at us, which is valid considering we've been ramping and drawing cards, and we just let the Dragon Engine through for 7 commander damage. They gain another speed and trigger Mask of Memory, drawing 2 and discarding a Zoetic Cavern. For their next trick, they cast a 4-mana Meteor Golem, untapping their commander, but more importantly taking out the surprisingly relevant Grafdigger's Cage, so they can cast spells from the top of their library with the Forge. They do just that, netting themselves a free pair of Swiftfoot Boots, which they somehow fit on Traxos' feet. Greymon plays a Plains and then swings their commander at us and Thalia's Lieutenant at JBM. This likely signals a sweeper, but I'm also a little worried about combat trick, so I opt not to block. They gain 5, we take 3, and then they follow up with Vanquish the Horde, wiping the board of creatures. The Jolly Balloon Man triggers at Sushi for 3 treasures and Solemn Simulacrum from a card, and then Greymon passes to us. Losing our creatures is definitely a setback, but we can still get a lot of work done with Cesaril. Oh, is that a Null Elemental Blast? We have been blown out. We persevere though, playing a swamp and then sacrificing it to Hearthhole to draw 2, one of which is a Riveteer's Outlook, which we play to grab a basic forest and gain a life. The Boros Clown has a Reliquary Tower and then a Scourge of the Throne. With Flame Shadow Conjuring, they're going to get to push a lot of damage. They copy the dragon and then cast Bovine Intervention, turning Semblance Anvil into a cow. Traxos has plenty of mana, so I probably would have gone after Mystic Forge there, but they might be worried about combo potential. They attack Greymon, who's on the throne, with the Scourge copy, triggering the throne for a counter and then untapping the token and getting another combat step. They connect for 6 twice, knocking the human player down to 31, and then exile the token on end step. Traxos sends their cow into Greymon to maximize their speed, and then cast a free Metalwork Colossus. They follow up with Ugin the Spirit Dragon, and -6 the colorless Planeswalker to exile Flame Shadow Conjuring, Scourge of the Throne, and Hearthhall, which we send to our command zone. Speaking of, we didn't notice that Greymon ended up in the graveyard, but it and Thalia's Lieutenant are both back thanks to Angel of Glory's Rise. Greymon is toggled to First Strike and Lifelink again, and both he and Thalia's Lieutenant get counters from the Lieutenant's triggers. The Human Angel Coalition passes to us with their board rebuilt. With the board mostly clear, we have time for some setup. We want to keep Greymon's sights on Traxos, so we play a very unthreatening Sprouting Goblin, kicking it to find us a land drop, a forest, and then pass with 4 mana up for Infernal Grasp and our clues. The Jolly Balloon Man untaps and passes, letting the table know that they hit a pocket of lands. Traxos +2's Ugin to Ghost Slam Thalia's Lieutenant, then casts a Palladium Mirror and the Regalia from the top of their deck. I'll definitely be building the Regalia in the not too distant future. I just love the idea of an actual car as a commander. They send their mirror on a road trip and equip Mask of Memory to the Colossus before heading into combat. They send the big one at the Jolly Balloon Man and the car at us, and the Regalia finds them a majoring network with its attack trigger. We chump block with our Goblin and the Clown gets smacked for 10, mass triggering to draw Traxos 2 cards and discard a Worn Power Stone. exile the top card of their library with their Mystic Forge, and then play a Crystal Grotto, drawing a card to the bottom, and then cast the last card in their hand, a Thran Dynamo. Greymon casts another Angel, an Overseer that gets indestructible and hexproof as long as they control a human. They head to combat, swinging their commander at us, and Angel of Glory's Rise at Ugin. We want people to respect our open mana, so we try to Infernal Grasp Greymon, but they have a Faith Shield to give it protection from black. We take the lifelinking hit, and Ugin falls, and then we crack a clue on their end step. We draw one of my favorite Magic the Gathering cards and consider our options. We could cast Avenger of Zendikar and get a nice board going, but that almost guarantees we're taking 10 flying damage from Greymon. It's risky, but I love escaping to the wilds, so we cast it, hoping to find some options. We consider tearing the Mystic Forge asunder, but it works out better for us if they have another big turn and the humans start looking their way. So instead we play Mountain Valley, cast 3 visits for a Vernal Fen, play Dakmor Salvage, and then misclick, passing the turn before we can cast Iridescent Vine Lasher in case it needs to jump in front of a Colossus. Balloon Man plays a Plains and then casts the Akroan War, and uses its first chapter to temporarily steal Metalwork Colossus. It seems they've accepted their flooding status because they cast their commander and use it to make a Balloon Colossus and attack for 1 into the Traxos player before passing. Gotta respect the hustle. Traxos gets their revenge though, crewing the Regalia with Palladium Mirror and I guess throwing a mask in the trunk or something. They swing at Jolly Balloon Man, finding an Urza's Mine and connecting for 4. The mask in the glove compartment turbo loots and they discard a Conduit Pylons. After that, the Traxos player lets us know something has come up and they need to leave, so they concede. It's always a bummer to lose a player, and with the dynamic at the table, this means that Greymon sights are definitely going to be set on us. Fortunately, we have Blasphemous Act, but we're probably going to take a big hit before we can cast it. Greymon is really leaning into the Angels this game because they play a Plains and then tap out to cast one of the biggest Angels of all, Avacyn, Angel of Hope. They swing their indestructible board at us, knocking us down to a perilous 11 and gaining some life from Greymon. We're feeling pretty good about our decision to hang on to Tear Asunder. We use it to exile Avacyn and then cast a 5-mana Blasphemous Act to clear the board. The Overseer still has 13 damage on it when Greymon dies, so it gets destroyed as well. We crack our Mountain Valley for an untapped Smoldering Marsh, and then cast Iridescent Vine Lasher since this is our last chance to do so, and then we play our Canyon Slough and ping Greymon for 1. Our life total is low, but if we get to untap, we can cast Avenger of Zendikar into Splendid Reclamation for a massive board. Poor Balloon Man takes up their Saga, ticking off our Vine Lasher, and then casts and cracks a Wayfarer's Bauble to fetch up a tapped Plains before passing. Greymon starts their rebuild with an ambitious farmhand, tutoring up a Plains, which they play. They then cast a Bygone Bishop and immediately realize they meant to do that the other way around, and ship the turn to us. We cast our Avenger, creating 11 plants, and then play a Eumidian Hatchery to put +1/+1 counters on all of them and ping Greymon for 1. We could cast Splendid Reclamation here to make them huge, but we decide to hold on to that for next turn for some surprise pump when they can actually attack. Instead, we cast Oracle of Moldaya, and Old Mooly Dooley reveals a Terramorphic Expanse on the top of our deck, which we play, pinging Greymon again and growing our plants. Our Vine Lasher has to attack, so we grudgingly send it into the Blue Man before ending our turn. The Saga of the Akroan War is concluded, but the only tapped creature has 1 power and 2 toughness. They play a Sunscorched Desert and pass with a single card in hand. Greymon has a Plains, and then a Lunarch Veteran, which triggers Bygone Bishop for a clue. They just pass, leaving their team back to block our army of Flora. We don't want to draw a Rocky Tar Pit, so we crack our Terramorphic Expanse for a Swamp, pinging Greymon again and adding another round of counters to the plants. We see an Omnath, Locus of Rage on top of our library, which is a nice backup plan. We cast Splendid Reclamation, and the Balloon Man responds with a card I've never seen before, Surge of Salvation. After I read it and realize it doesn't really do anything here, the stack resolves and we bring back 7 lands from our graveyard, including a Riveteer's Outlook, which triggers. Our plants get absolutely huge, and we ping Greymon down to 25 when all the triggers resolve, and then we go to combat, dividing up our force of 11/12s between our opponents to ensure victory. Greymon sets up their blocks and uses Courageous Resolve on their bishop to try to dig for an answer, but they don't find anything, and we connect for lethal, winning the game.
Good game to all of our opponents. I'm always a little reluctant to post games where people scoop, but unfortunately it happens pretty frequently on MTGO. If Traxos hadn't bowed out, the game probably would have played quite a bit differently, but I still thought it made for interesting content. Is it just me, or are the colorless decks always arch enemy? Traxos had some incredible card and mana advantages online early, and was definitely dictating the tempo of the game before anyone else. Them being the arch enemy helped us out though. If the boards had been more even, we probably would have taken a lot more incidental damage in the early game during our slow start. I'm not sure how many Angels are in Greymon's deck, but it feels like they might have gotten in the way this game. Greymon really wants a wide board of humans, and while they did get to set up a sweeper into Mass Reanimation, only getting back 2 of their Kindred cards almost didn't seem worth it. They still did a great job of pressuring life totals and making people have the answers they were threatening though, which are important skills for an aggro deck player to have. It seemed like the Jolly Balloon Man was a little scattered to the wind. It's always rough to flood out. The cards we did get to see weren't the best for the commander to capitalize. They got off to a great start, but I think they probably could have tried to hold back some resources and get more value out of their commander since it's relatively cheap and they can always recast it. We got to see a few of our upgrades in action, and Avenger of Zendikar is no stranger to winning games. Hearthhall wasn't around for long, but digging through our deck and putting lands in our graveyard to recur later helped set us up for the win. I think that's often going to be Hearthhall's role, supporting the plan rather than being the plan, since Spacecraft are inherently a little awkward due to their restrictions, and stationing to the full 8 makes it vulnerable to creature removal. Overall, I felt like the deck punched above its weight for being a budget upgraded precon. There are enough of the effects that it wants available inexpensively for it to feel consistent without relying on tutors. I think squeezing in some more land drop effects and recursion would be a good way to go further, as well as another haste enabler or two to set up potential one-turn kills with the different landfall and landfill token producers. If you're not on a budget, Lotus Cobra and the new one-card engine Ice-Till Explorer are must-haves for a deck like this. And if you have access to premium fetch lands and chalk lands, upgrading the mana base is well worth it. If you're looking to go up to bracket 3, I'd recommend Crop Rotation and Field of the Dead as your first two game changers, and then after that you have some options. If you have access or a proxy-friendly playgroup, Gaia's Cradle is a clear winner, but Black's Unrestricted Tutors are both great options, and Glacial Chasm can be a very frustrating addition for our opponents to deal with. You'll probably also want to open up more potential combo kills in bracket 3 with cards like Scapeshift and Zurin Orb. That's going to do it for today's video. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment to help the channel grow, and stay tuned for another Edge of Eternity's commander in my next video. This will be my first foray into bracket 4 on the channel and is a spicy list featuring a companion, so definitely check it out. Good luck and have fun in your future endeavors. Magic Boy out!